So this is what Ruth said. The economy is a big part of the game, but I do agree that it should not be important as it is right now. So I know Ruth. Ruth uh, is very active inside of the Fall Bay. She has a thread that has many pages inside of it. So she interacts with the trading community often, and she agrees that it should not be important. So this is kind of like ideally what Slavin wants. It's when people like Ruth, who are intimately involved with the economy, don't really care if an item's value gets ruined. Or is that correct? So the only thing from the economy that really matters in game are taros, which are used to buy items that help with gameplay. Everything else that is sold and traded are just cosmetics or items that are not essential to gameplay. Now, I'm not exactly sure what Ruth means by used to buy items that help with gameplay. Are you referring to gumballs, weapon boosts, and potions? Because technically, you don't even need that unless you want to. Unless you are a frequent, unless you are a frequent flyer of the Scamper or the Monkey Skyway agents. You don't need to buy gumballs for grinding. It's recommended, but you don't need it. You don't need weapon boosts. And when it comes to potions, you can get a whole lot of them that can last a long time for a very cheap amount. So in fact, you don't even need um, millions of taros to make that happen. Um, but everything else that is sold and traded are cosmetics or items that are not essential to gameplay. Yeah, so if you were to go to the Universal Guide, the link is inside of the description as well as the comments. The most valued items would have to be accessories. Uh, for example, the construction helmet, mysterious vendor item. At the time of this uploading, it's about 500k. We have the gold exclusives, such as the recent Amiyumi Gangrene Pizza Party t-shirts. They're 40k each. And the most expensive would have to be, and the most expensive event items would have to be the Gem Rejuvenator, but I've heard its value has actually taken a toll, is 400k, right? Yeah, so I would agree with you that items themselves are not necessary, and to go add on to that, you don't even need to use any of the grindable items that the game offers you. In fact, you just if you're leveling up the natural way by doing missions. So what Ruth is saying here is the economy is not that important, and that taros. And I don't think that it matters are taros, but the problem that I'm seeing here is you don't really need a lot of taros. Is that a problem? I guess that kind of isn't from a pragmatic point of view. Anyways, I do think that some previous items should be reintroduced to the game, even if it ruins its value. Since I agree that the economy is not a big part of the game. So I run a Discord server. The link is inside of the description. And there's a channel dedicated for trading. The activity for the trading channel versus general FusionFall talk, it's dramatically lower. Now, understandably, my server is not dedicated for trading, but if we look into other major servers that have their own prominent trading, that have their own prominent trading channels, even then, trading is not that big of a cornerstone relative to how much activity is involved with the main chat. items that don't have ties to a specific occasion, such as the mysterious vendor. Items and some event items could, like mysterious vendor items and some event items, could be reintroduced to the game as ultra rare drops or racing items, while other items could be reintroduced as part of a throwback shop that sells them for about 100,000 taros for a limited time. So Ruth is actually speaking a lot of great sense right here outside of the first paragraph, but I'm trying to understand the first paragraph. But the second paragraph, yeah, I do agree. Ruth is, from my observation, is trying to add on to what Slavin is saying, that items should be re-released, and like what I said earlier, if in order to lower the blow of these re-released items, it needs to be a grindable, and ideally at this point in time it needs to be a racing item. Now, what's unique about what Ruth has stated inside of this post would have to be the idea of a throwback shop that sells them for about 100,000 taros for a limited time. And honestly, I think that's a very unique idea. That's a very unique idea in my opinion. First impression, I think it's very unique. I'm not exactly sure about the unintended consequences, but that would be nice. So with the mysterious vendors, that was not an event item. One of the main purposes of it was to be used as a money sink, as well as a way to get the community together in order to go find the item. But the problem with that is that it became incredibly toxic. And the problem with mysterious vendors is that they're going to be re-released. So it's an eventual, very slow economic crash waiting to happen. And some event items could be reintroduced to the game as ultra rare drops or racing items, while that's what happened with racing items. Like when the racing update originally came out, a lot of items, from previous events, at least the ones that were not as valuable, became re-released. So, if we were to look into Halloween 2019, I think a lot of people wouldn't mind if the devs were to reintroduce these less valuable items right here, from the Spook Ahead all the way to the Blast On set. And if we were to look down into Canismus, I think a lot of people would not mind. To be fair, Canismus is the most recent event, so I think a better example would have to be the Halloween event. Yeah, I think most people would not mind if they were to, for example, make the Spooka Hood be released inside of the Eternal Meadows Infected Zone, as well as the Blast On set inside of the Infected Zone. For these other ones, such as the Abracadagger, it could be re-released inside of the Pokeyokes Infected Zone. So yeah, I would not mind that from happening, and I definitely agree. But the throwback shop, that sounds interesting, and perhaps they could make that throwback shop located at Townsville Mall, right? So then it makes you kind of, okay, like, okay, yeah, I give you the pass, like I give you the pass that you can re-release these items, these worthless items right here, as racing items or as grindable items. Now, the next problem would then become, what about the most valued items, such as the Gem Rejuvenator? And again, it could just be a gold exclusive item, or it could just be a racing exclusive item, right? At least work for it. But since we're talking about Halloween, or since I'm on the Halloween 2019 page, and since we're talking about the economy, and I was talking about recently about the relationship between items and taros, which one is more valuable. Something that a lot of people did not understand, which was completely unnecessary, would have to be the developers making the green Blaston set drop like candy. There was no reason to do that at all. Like, the value of the green Wraith set, it was like that because of how difficult it was. You would have to put in many hours just to go get one of an entire set. And I have a live stream where I did that. It's very brutal. Something that I dislike. What I don't want to happen is when the devs are going to re-release these items, if they are, and make them drop like candy. Ideally, I don't want the devs to make it drop like candy. What needs to happen is that they need to go work for those items. That's a way to go dramatically lower the blow. Now, if that happens, will the value of these items drop to like 5K? No, it won't, because you still have to put in effort towards it. It's going to have a very noticeable decline, but it won't be worthless. So this is what Petamink stated. I agree. The economy of the game gets braked almost every time that the devs release a new patch. And yeah, I would agree with that, and I would also want to disagree with that. So inside of my State of the Economy article, I was talking about the value between hoarding items and taros. Like, what's the better choice? And these are some examples that I've listed when hoarding items went severely wrong, and when the devs just decided to ruin the value of items within an update. Now, I can try and justify almost every single one of these. So first off, we have ourselves the FusionFall drop table, which made the Tech Camo shoes and the Sapphire Angel shoes peak value of 1 million taros down to worthless. Now, I can understand why this happened, because again, the shoes, the fly, it got monopolized, and groups of people were camping there the entire time, even though it was like 4 a.m. So, and items did not have value of uber worth when the drop table is not working at all. For the racing update, I can understand, because the vast majority of the items that were re-released did not have much value, such as the Third Barre Ancestral sets. And for the Ben 10 update and for Big Show Wings, I've stated this before, the Big Show Wings, it reached the point of monopolization where you would have to pay an excessive amount of taros to a small group of people who, if ever, rarely would sell or trade the wings. And the problem, so those are forgivable. The FusionFall, the racing update, and the Big Show Wings. in retrospect. Now, the part that does not make any sense at all would have to be when the Halloween 2019 event happened. The green Fusion Wraith dropped like candy, and we had this set that was worth 600,000 taros, and now it became worthless. There was no reason for that to happen. At least for the Hyperfusion Fly, there was a glitch drop table for the racing update. Those items were not valuable to begin with. And for the Big Chill Wings, there was a form of monopolization, but the devs they just decided to make the value of the set worthless. There's no need. Like, you can, and the reason why the set is worth so high is because it takes a lot of time to go get it. Like, I live streamed myself obtaining the set. It took me 5+ hours. You can look for the video yourself. I think it was probably 7 hours. It takes a long time, and then they just re-released it. Now, I'm trying to understand it from their perspective. Like, why did they do that? Is it because they released the Blast-On set, and they wanted to add in the green Wraith set as filler to make the drop table much more difficult to begin with? But again, that's not worth it. And for the Bandito hat, this was a unintended consequence that they've made. So if a ultra rare item were to be, so if a gold exclusive, well, first of all, if a standard ultra rare were to be introduced to a drop table, the other ultra rares inside of that drop table, it would take a noticeable decline in value. The reason why is because as people grind for those items, the brand new item, they also get the old items. So therefore the supply increases for the old items, and thus its overall value, because more people have it. But that was an unintended consequence. So far, I just don't understand with the whole green Wraith set thing. I think a solution for that is for themselves to release a cosmic Wraith set, like a yellow Wraith set, and add that into the infected zone for racing. And so I disagree. So with that in mind, I actually mostly disagree with that. Most of the fixes that they did, it's understandable.